Hello and welcome to the April edition of the OAR program. OAR, AWE, stands for Aging with Expectation. And this month, we are doing something a little different to previous months. And in that, Dr. Francis Macnab and the Rev Dr Steven Koski will discuss Easter, with particular emphasis on the theme of where can we find hope these days. A very interesting subject, I think. Next month, May, the first Friday in May, we hope to be back doing the usual program. Until then, I'll say bye for now and hope that you enjoy the discussion.
So Francis, great to see you.
And you. Nice to talk.
And I thought Easter is just around the corner. And I know I'm speaking to a lot of people these days who are just in need of a little bit of hope. There's so much despair, so much struggle, so much fear, so much doom and gloom. I know I'm talking to a lot of people just wondering, where they can find hope. So I thought we could have an opportunity to just chat for a little bit about Easter, kind of imagine that we're having a dialogue sermon. We have this opportunity to together preach an Easter sermon on hope to some despairing folks and wondering, what we might say. I love the quote by William Sloane Coffin. So I'll start with this quote on hope by William Sloane Coffin, where he says, "Hope is a state of mind, independent of the state of the world." He said, if your heart's full of hope, you can be persistent even if you can't be optimistic. You can keep the faith despite the evidence around you, knowing that only in so doing has the evidence any chance of changing. So he said, while I'm not very optimistic at all, I'm always hopeful. So I'm kind of curious, what does hope mean to you? How do you define hope, and how can we keep hope alive these days?
Yes, we've decided on a tough topic to begin. How do we get hope in the first place?
Yeah.
That we believe that something is going to follow on what we're doing now. And that's not always a fact, that things run out. Hope runs out on us and we don't have anything there. And I think that often affects people more than we realize, that they don't want to think about hope because it might disappear.
Yeah.
While they're talking about it. I think that can happen. That hope, we can talk, we get the words to come, but what's the substance of it? What makes hope real, as it were? What do you think?
I do think people are wondering, where has hope gone?
Yeah.
And that's why I love the distinction that William Sloane Coffin is making between hope and optimism. And that optimism is somewhat dependent on the circumstances. Like you're optimistic if the circumstances are in your favor. And he's saying hope can be independent of those circumstances. And I was thinking about that. I mean, the horrific war that's taking place in Ukraine, in many respects is just hopeless. Just reminds us of a sense of hopelessness, of the despair, the devastation, the innocent people who are dying. And then I saw this picture of this woman, this Ukrainian woman who had about 15 dogs on a leash. And what she is doing is around Kyiv in Ukraine, she's going around to animal shelters. And she's gathering up all of the disabled dogs and bringing them to safety and shelter. And I'm thinking to myself, well, whatever is in the human heart, whatever is in that woman's heart in the face of such devastation, that gives me hope. I saw a video of a woman in Ukraine whose home was completely destroyed. Interestingly enough, one of the only things in her home that wasn't destroyed was her piano. So there she is in the midst of the ruins, playing beautiful, beautiful music. That gives me hope. I saw a picture, maybe you've seen it, where at a train station at the Polish-Ukrainian border, there were about 50 baby strollers that were left, where Polish mothers brought their baby strollers to the border for the Ukrainian mothers who were fleeing violence, carrying their children so that there would be a stroller for them to place their children in. And one of the Polish mothers was interviewed, and she said, I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but today I can choose love. That gives me hope, that amidst all of the devastation and despair, there's a strength, there's the resiliency and a strength of the human spirit. There's a love, if you like, that just refuses to be defeated. And I think that's what Easter is about, and that gives me hope. What do you think?
Easter and hope, do they always run together? Sometimes they do. Sometimes Easter depends on hope, but sometimes there is no hope. The hope has been destroyed, and yet we go searching for something to give us a belief in tomorrow, or even today, a belief in today.
Yeah.
We're looking for something to say yes to. Yes. To you, to me, to them, to all of us. How can we find something that is meaningful, that is a yes to all the no's that seem to crop up and say, no, that's not so. No, you can't do that. No. Let's turn it around and say, what do we do to find the yes so that we can say yes and mean yes? Mean that there is something there that says, we're here, we're speaking to each other, yes, we are believing in today, and we believe there will be tomorrow. Yes. Very difficult. Because so quickly we can lose the yes and start believing, well, no, we believe in no.
I think that's so important, to try the best we can to hang on to the yes. And it's that idea that, I guess that mystery, that promise of Easter, that the worst thing will never be the last thing. I mean, I love the Eastern Orthodox tradition on Easter, where they tell jokes.
Oh.
They tell jokes to summon laughter as a way of symbolizing laughing in the face of death. Now, what they don't mean to trivialize death. They don't mean to trivialize suffering, because that's very obviously very real. What they're trying to say in that is that the suffering, the no, the way that life speaks no to us through trauma, through suffering, through death. It's their way of saying that no that suffering, that darkness will never have the last word. There will always be another word, a yes, as you said.
Yes, yes, indeed. We need to be able to say, in spite of all that is negative, in spite of the recurring no of life, the recurring no to our existence, we can say, but we can hear sneaking through, coming through, louder and louder, the yes, the possible. We'll try again. Over to you.
Right, okay. I'm probably not going to pronounce this right, and you can help me. That Japanese art form, is it called kintsugi? Kintsugi, perhaps, where, say, a vase is broken. Say there's a clay pot that's broken in several pieces. And it's that art form that puts it back together again, but uses gold mixed in with the glue. So the restored piece of art is more beautiful than the broken piece of art, or than the previous piece of art. So this idea that that which is broken can be transformed into something beautiful.
Yes, good. Well, a little bit more than that, I think, too, that we can say that in the second look at the situation, we can say it's not only that it's different, it is stronger, it is better than the past. We can see a little bit of light shining through the cracks. We can see that there's a possibility of putting the pot together again, getting it to hold, getting it to do its job again. And we can help it do that. Our task is to gather together the bits and pieces, put them together, get something to seal them together, and proceed into a new form into the future. To you.
I have a tradition on Easter of quoting my second favorite theologian, because you're my favorite theologian. So it'd be my second favorite theologian, Dr. Seuss. So on Easter, and I've done this for many, many years, I recite one of his books called On Beyond Zebra. Do you know the one?
No, I don't.
On Beyond Zebra. There's a small little part of it. It goes like this: from beginning to end, from start to the close, everyone knows Z, or Z for Australians. Z is as far as the alphabet goes. Then he almost fell flat on his face on the floor when I picked up the chalk and drew one letter more, a letter he'd never dreamed of before. So in the places I go and the people I see, I couldn't survive if I stopped at Z. So on Beyond Zebra, it's high time you were shown that maybe, just maybe, you don't know all there is to be known. And I love that idea of how we feel like we're trapped in A to Z, and there's one letter more, a letter we've never dreamed of before. And to me, this idea is that the story isn't over yet. There's more. There can be one letter more for ourselves, one letter more for our world. I often say, to me, that the ultimate message of Easter is love wins. meaning there is this love, there is this life force that refused to be defeated, can't be defeated, couldn't be sealed in a tomb, to use that metaphor. And that this idea that, well, if love isn't winning, if it looks like love isn't winning, and certainly you look around the world right now, it doesn't look like love's winning. What it means is, it just means the story isn't over yet. There's a chance for one letter more. So what do you think of that story? What for you does that mean, one letter more?
I think it's good. It's good because we're looking for something more. If you think, this is it, that's the end, it's all over, well, it tends to be just that. We tend to accept it's over. But if we can believe that, just open a little bit of the door and let a little bit more light in, a little fresh thought in. Another word is yet to be spoken. Even though we think the last word has been spoken, there is another word yet. And do you believe that? You're supposed to say yes to that.
I believe that absolutely, yes.
Yes, see, if we can say yes after no, we can find a pathway through for someone to say, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Do that.
Yeah, I think of, how you see the future determines the spirit in which you live today. So if what I see in the future is that this is it, there isn't one letter more, I will succumb to despair. But if I truly believe or trust or dare to trust the mystery that love wins, even though it doesn't look like love's winning, what that means is I'm going to show up to the shelter that I am involved with, and I'm going to feed hungry people, even though there's more hungry people in the line today than there was yesterday. Because I ultimately believe, love will win.
But supposing it doesn't win. You say, ultimately, love will win, but to this person, to that person, to over there, that other person, love is not winning. Love is not their answer. What do we say to them? What do we say when the situation doesn't yield the answer that we would like it to yield? What do we say then? Is there anything more to be said? I believe there is.
Well, I will always say, and then I will let you say what you would say. I would say to that person, certainly love doesn't fix everything. Love didn't fix my father's Alzheimer's. But I ultimately believe that even though love doesn't fix everything, love endures. And so, as I had the sacred privilege to hold my father, to kiss his forehead, to tell him that I loved him, even though he, by all intents and purposes, didn't seem to know who I was. And I told him that he had nothing to fear. And for some time, there hadn't been any sense of recognition in our eyes. But I was cradling him, and he looked at me, and I believe in the very depths of my being, there was this recognition. And there was this recognition, and I was holding him, so I felt the peace. It's almost like he after I told him it will be okay, that he had nothing to fear, and that I loved him, and that nothing will change that love, his whole body relaxed, and his eyes, we made eye contact, and I believe wholeheartedly that he knew who I was for the first time in months and months and months. And he died not that long after. So I believe that certainly love doesn't fix everything. That love doesn't necessarily make life less painful. But I do believe that love endures. What does it say in Corinthians? Love never ends. Love endures. And somehow that gives me hope.
Love may not be there, so we go searching for it, believing that we can find something that looks like, feels like, is like love, or something that holds us together, something that gives us a feeling that beyond the present, there's something else, which is what we're talking about, isn't it? We're looking at something that says it's good, it's strong enough to hold us, to look into the future and say it's okay. We can be there. We can go there. We can be there. Is that hope? Well, it gives us something to move towards, something to lift us from where we are to where we can be just a little bit different.
Yeah.
You.
I often think, that faith, in other words, faith, that to me, faith isn't an epidural intended to make life's pain go away. Faith, I think, is that promise, I guess, that you're not alone in the darkness. And somehow that promise, even though you may feel like you're alone, hanging on to that promise that there is a love that refuses to be defeated, that is present, helps me endure the darkness.
What is it that helps you endure the darkness? If the darkness is real, and I believe it is, it's a real experience. There it is. It's dark and it's not moving. What helps you endure it? What helps you to get a little bit beyond it? What do you say to that?
I think for me, because it certainly is real, the darkness is very real. There's a couple things. Again, it's that promise, perhaps, that I'm not abandoned in the darkness, that I'm not alone in the darkness. But it's also the promise that the worst thing will never be the last thing, that there is more.
Supposing I take you one step further and say, but there is nothing more. You're up against the end point. There is nothing for you beyond this. What do you say then? Are you going to tell me there is, even though I don't believe it? Or can we look at it differently?
Well, the first thing I would want to do is just be with you in that experience of feeling like there's nothing more. Because I think when you're in that place, my words are not going to make you feel better. But if I could sit with you in that place even then you're not alone in that place.
The miracle that we're living through at this very moment is that you are not here with me. In fact, you are thousands of miles away in another country. And yet here we are talking as if we believe that we're present to each other. Are we thereby deceiving ourselves? Are we thereby telling ourselves something is true when it is not? What do we say when the belief in the future moment is eluding us? Many people feel that they're living through a time when the future moment is eluding them, is evading them, is in flight. How do they feel? How can they come to feel that you're there, that you're important, that you have something to give to them? Over to you.
I love the phrase that Wendell Berry, the poet Wendell Berry, says, our job as people of faith is to practice resurrection. And what I hear in that is, I think our job in the midst of despair is to look for life, is to help one another find life, is to help one another find hope. It's the woman, honestly, it's the woman in Ukraine gathering up all of those disabled dogs and bringing them to shelter. To me, that's practicing resurrection. In the midst of death, she is claiming life. She is saying yes to life. It's the strollers at the border, where the woman says, I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, but today I choose love. Today I'm going to put my stake in the ground that love is stronger than despair. And I think when we can help one another find life, love, hope in the midst of despair, we're practicing resurrection.
We can be like hens, roosters, scratching in the dirt, believing there's something there. So they scratch and scratch and scratch, and they say, I found something. So we believe that our scratchings will yield a seed, and the seed will make us believe there's a future beyond our scratching. And we need that reassurance again and again, that there is something that makes our scratching worthwhile.
Yeah.
Keep scratching. Keep scratching.
I often say to people in the church setting, particularly when people are going through grief, and they say to me, I just can't sing the hymns. I can't say the prayers. All I can do is weep. And I often say, one, I am so very grateful that you feel that this is a safe space for you to weep. And just know that I'm going to pray for you until you can find your prayers. I'm going to sing for you. As a community, we're going to sing for you until you can find your voice again. And I actually think that's what it means to be a church community in a way, or how important a church community can be, is that we all have those experiences where one, I can't pray and I don't even believe in, I don't even know what prayer is, and I don't even know what I believe anymore. I can't sing, I can't find something in me to sing. To have the kind of relationships to be able to say, that's okay, I understand. let me sing for you until you can find your voice again. I mean, I love what Anne Lamott said, the writer Anne Lamott said, life is one big emergency room. we're all in this emergency room together. And you're either the one in crisis or the one doing the caring. And know that the roles will change. So if you're the one that's doing the caring for the person in crisis, just make sure you have some orange juice and crackers so that we can be there for each other. Right. And that gives that to me as an image of hope.
How to be there with another person. How to be there with ourselves. Sometimes we're so uncertain of our own status, our own footing, that we're not even there for ourselves. So part of our task, if you like, is to find a way to be there for ourselves and then be there for someone else. Sometimes it operates the other way, where we can be there for someone else first. And by being there for someone else, we discover that we had something in ourselves that we weren't quite aware of. Now we are aware of it. So we can both together, we can lift up our voices together and say, yes, 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 yes to that, and yes, something in the future.
I had the most extraordinary experience. I might have shared this before. It was such a life-changing experience for me when Laurie was critically ill in the ICU and really was teetering on the edge of life and death for weeks. And I remember I was sitting feeling really helpless and powerless. And I'm sure I was wearing my fear on my face. And a nurse said to me, Stephen, you have to quit driving yourself crazy, worrying what's going to happen tomorrow. She said, the power of your love isn't located yesterday wishing this hadn't happened. She said, the power of your love isn't located tomorrow, hoping that things might be different tomorrow. This is a nurse. She said to me, the power of your love is in this room, right here, right now. And she said to me, I know that you feel helpless, but you are not powerless. So she said, the next time you feel that fear is getting a grip on you, I want you to stand up, put lotion in your hands, and rub your wife's feet. Now, Laurie was on a ventilator and she was in a coma, but she said, rub your wife's feet. And as you're rubbing her feet, imagine you are bringing love to every cell of her being. And she said, you're not powerless. You are part of this healing team. And I swear to God, that nurse saved my life that day, because she shifted my energy from feeling kind of helpless in the corner to helping me feel, or helping connect me, I guess, with the power of my love, and help me see that I was part of the healing process. It was a really extraordinary experience.
Yes, indeed. In a way, in a very significant way, she was helping you to connect with the spirit of healing, with the spirit of the future. This is not the end. We can go on. And even if it is the end in one sense, we still can find a way to cope with it, to get beyond it, to be something for the future. They're difficult words, but they need to become true words, words that we can trust. Very difficult.
Yeah, the nurse really connected me back to myself.
Hmm.
She kind of returned me to my heart, which was life-saving in many ways. Even though my wife was critically ill, I felt like I was saved in that.
Notice we can all do that. Here were you wanting something to happen that comes to you by someone totally outside you, the nurse. Does it brings you a thought of hope or an experience of hope that we can live for another day. So that connection with yourself, with somebody else, with a future possibility, very powerful. We all need to feel that from time to time, especially when we're facing some fairly gloomy experiences. How to connect with the healing spirit, if you like, with a healing word, with a healing person. It's there. Sometimes we just don't see it. Sometimes we just don't feel it. Look again, and there it is. Back to you.
Martin Luther was asked what he would do on the day of his death. Like if he knew he was to die on that day, what would he do? And he said, I would plant a tree. And I've always loved that because it comes back to what you were saying earlier on about somehow finding that yes. So in the midst of death, what he would do would be to choose life. And I always thought that was really beautiful.
Yes, yes, indeed. It's really, not only was he choosing life, but he was choosing a symbol of life.
Yeah.
And we need to be, I think it's good if we can be reminded that although the space immediately in front of us appears to be empty, a symbol of life and hope can suddenly appear. Sometimes when we're least expecting it. Sometimes when we would be hard pressed to name it, it appears. Where is it? There, somewhere? Will it come? Of course it will come. Let us be open to the possibility that in the midst of our darkest times, a little bit of light can yet shine. A little bit of hope can yet break into our darkness.
It's that woman in Ukraine playing the piano in the midst of the ruins of her house that had been bombed. Choosing life, choosing yes in the midst of all of that despair. A symbol that there is a life force, even a goodness, if you like. I think it was Desmond Tutu, who recently died. He defined Easter. He said, Easter is the promise that goodness is stronger than evil, that light is stronger than darkness, that love is stronger than hate, that life is stronger than death. And when he was in the midst of apartheid, I remember this story, in the midst of apartheid, he was speaking at a church, and the army was surrounding, inside the church, but they surrounded the church because they feared an uprising of the people. And Desmond Tutu, the small, diminutive man with his wonderful laugh, looked at the white officers with their AK-47s, their machine guns, and he said, you might as well put those guns down now and join the dance, because love has already won this party. You just don't know it yet.
Very good. Great
I love
story.
it.
Great story. Yeah, join the dance. Yeah. So what will we say? What will we do? What can we do in the face of our darkest times or people's darkest times? What word of hope can we give to people? Is there a word of hope?
I think the word of hope, I mean, to me, it's somehow being able to say yes, to find yes, to share yes, to encourage yes in one another. It's the trust that the very worst thing won't be the last thing. There is the possibility for one letter more. I just want to finish with my favorite story. Well, one of my favorite stories that I think speaks to this, of this mother whose child had leukemia. He was 5 years old, and he was in the hospital, and he was going through, I mean, things were really, really hard. And his mom wants desperately somehow, I mean, her son lost the sparkle in his eye. And she wanted to, even though his situation was serious, she wanted to somehow help him experience life, return to life. And she knew his dream. He's 5 years old. His dream was to be a fireman. So this was Phoenix, Arizona. She called up the Phoenix, Arizona Fire Department and asked for the chief. And told the story of her son and asked the chief, "Can you help?" And the chief said the one word that changes lives: yes. He didn't say, "Let me check my schedule," or "I'm kind of busy here." He said, yes. And he said to this mother, he said, "Tell the nurses, don't be alarmed. There's going to be some fire trucks pulling up in front of the hospital." So they prepared this boy with his IV and everything. So 3 huge fire trucks pulled up in front of the hospital. The fire chief got out and placed a hat. They had prepared a hat. This boy's name was Bobby. They prepared a hat that said "Bobby Captain, Phoenix Fire Department, number 451. And this fire chief picked Bobby up, put him in the front cab with him. And that day there were 6 fires in Phoenix, and they took Bobby. And Bobby was the one who got to press the button to make the sirens go. And Bobby got to release the valve to make the water pour out to put out the fire. So he's 5 years old. That day, I mean, his dream came true. I mean, the Greek definition of eternity actually means now, a qualitative experience now, not necessarily life. So he experienced eternity, experienced heaven in that moment. Well, it was probably like 3 weeks later, a very wise nurse called the fire department and said, "You might want to know that Bobby his time of transition is near." And again, this fire chief said, "Tell people not to be alarmed. They're going to hear sirens. We're going to come to honor one of our own." So this fire chief, with about 6 other firefighters, went to Bobby's arms, and he was being held by his mother. And the fire hat that he had given was on the dresser of the hospital room. And the fire chief went and took the fire helmet and put it on Bobby's head. And then Bobby apparently faintly said, "Am I a fireman yet?" And the fire chief said, "Bobby, you're one of us." Now, Bobby died of leukemia. But if you've ever heard of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which has impacted thousands of children and their families in a positive way in the most despairing times, that's how it started. that story was the start of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And it all started because in the midst of despair, one person said yes. So that to me is Easter.
What will I say? Yes, yes. It's really a great story. It's taking the hat off my head and putting it on his head. Sharing the hat, wearing the hat, being sure that the hat can be yours as well as mine. That's Easter too.
Yeah.
Good work.
Well, you give me hope. So thank you for this time, being able to share conversation and then share stories. Your friendship is a gift and I cherish it.
And it's mutual. It's very important that we can do this, being separated by thousands of miles, by huge distances, and yet we can speak right to the other person with the same word that was spoken at Easter time by people again and again down the ages, and we're speaking it today and showing that it's possible. But in fairly stark and difficult times, we can pause for a moment and find a yes that says, good. We can celebrate Easter. I hope you will.
So thanks for sharing a pulpit with me.
Good work.
And happy Easter.
And to you very much. Goodbye.